Welcome to SunnySpeaks, here again with another review for you, and you. And today, I'm here to talk about From the World of John Wick, Ballerina, directed by Len Wiseman and starring Ana De Armas, Keanu Reeves, Reedus, and many more. After experiencing a cliche tragedy as a child, Eve, played by Ana De Armas, despite the opposite advice being given to her, goes on a revenge quest against the man who took her family and the evil cult he leads. I've honestly never been a big fan of the John Wick movies, but I have seen all of them. I went into this with an open mind, but expected something ultimately empty. How does Ballerina hold up to the rest of the John Wick franchise? I'm gonna do us a favor and get the story out of the way. It's very hollow, and though throwing some curves at you in the narrative, they never really hold impact and sometimes can feel pointless. The plot is very simple and predictable, but at least the movie knows that about itself. As I've said many times now on my channel, once a movie knows what it is and caters to the audience, I really appreciate that. It packs enough action into the 2-hour and 5-minute runtime of this film to possibly make you forget some of the ridiculous writing, but the story is pretty stupid and I'm not going to talk about it much because I don't feel like there's much there to talk about. Ana De Armas, despite not having much to do when it comes to emotional acting and good writing to deliver vocally, she's awesome as Eve. Since seeing her for the first time in Blade Runner 2049 and then Knives Out, I've always liked her in films. She has a likability quality that really helps in a movie like this when there's not much else to lean on. My favorite thing about Eve as a character is her video game style mastery of various weapons and items, similar to John Wick, but I think this movie does a good job creating a scale of power visually that seems consistent with the rest of the film series. When speaking on the action, there's a lot of it, and I think it's really well done how they create anxiety as the action escalates. Most people wouldn't assume that their main character could possibly die, including myself, but even still, Eve goes through some shit in this movie, which only helped me endear to her as a character more. Though having the same problem I feel in all John Wick movies, where the action becomes so over the top and relentless that it affects the visual storytelling within the fights for me. Compared to something like The Raid, where you could argue the same over the top and relentless criticism, but it creates stakes that ground the story and the action scenes in particular, so you actually feel worried. Ballerina, I would say, definitely does that. Part of that being because Eve is a woman. Seeing her getting punched and kicked by a group of men is not the easiest thing to watch for me, but it makes her victories more triumphant. Eve is an environmental specialist using whatever she can to level the playing field with whoever is the opposition. I really liked how she fought and the confidence she has for her own intelligence and fighting ability despite the odds she faces. There's a sequence in this movie that takes place in a club. Not only did it have perfect club movie music in my opinion, but it had such a cool fight that displays Eve's strengths and weaknesses, and also seemed inspired by Sifu in certain ways. There's an action sequence in the third act that feels so familiar to Resident Evil 4. Seeing Eve running and fighting for her life against a whole island of gun-wielding crazy people was pretty dope. And Eve picks up a flamethrower in this movie, and that whole sequence is some of my favorite action I've seen all year. From the way it was shot, to the practical elements, and the tension it creates when the action escalates further, it was really awesome. There's a very dumb line in this movie during a montage when a mentor-esque character tells her to fight like a girl. Might be the worst line I've heard in any movie all year, especially because they set it up like that line is what helped her piece it all together, though she'd already been training for years at that point. But it was the last line before the movie presses on the gas and doesn't let up. Except for a couple of moments of silence. It's actually a thought I had in the theater. I felt like by the second act, there were moments of silence before a huge action sequence, and that is no exaggeration when I say a moment of silence. But again, that's another example of the movie knowing what it is and how to maximize the experience for the audience. Reedus is barely in this, so if his appearance excited you, I'm sorry for your loss. His character really means very little. He kind of just passes off an assignment to Eve and then isn't there anymore. I really hope Death Stranding 2 is good though, and because of my excitement for that game, I really wanted to see him more, and when he is in the movie, I really liked his energy, but yet he's not in it that much at all. Gabriel Byrne plays the Chancellor, the villain at the end of this revenge quest. The story allows him to have some nuance until it is completely stripped away from him, and his whole thing never made complete sense to me, but he worked for what he was, and his performance and character motivations helped me root for Eve even more so. Keanu Reeves is back as John Wick. This movie takes place between the third and fourth film in his series, though having some awkward line delivery. I actually enjoyed his place in the story quite a bit, showing what Eve could become if she continues down this bloody path. The chemistry between Eve and Wick is odd because they both give very cold and almost disinterested performances, but one scene in particular before the action and choreography starts, I actually felt like their dialogue exchange humanized them both for me a lot. Overall, I would give From the World of John Wick Ballerina, horrible title, horrible title. I would give Ballerina a cloudy rating. I enjoyed the movie a lot more than I expected. Again, this movie is not trying to give you a story. It gives you a cool character, an easy premise to follow, and some very cool action scenes that make you forget how empty the plot is. Ana De Armas is a action star, and if they make a Ballerina 2, I'll be there to see what they throw at Eve next. And when they make the inevitable John Wick 5, I hope we see Eve again. She's not my favorite Wick side character, but I think she has a lot of potential to be iconic. Homework for the audience before we go of female-led action movies that if you haven't seen, I highly recommend. Atomic Blonde, Prey, The Woman King, Alita Battle Angel, and the original anime movie Ghost in the Shell. This has been my review of Ballerina. If you have seen Ballerina, let me know what you think in the comments down below because perspective is key. If you haven't seen Ballerina, let me know if this review makes you want to go see the movie or not. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I'll be back again. Peace.